Welcome to What to Read Wednesdays, and I'm Marlene, the Adult Services Supervisor at the North Carroll branch. I was just looking at a very old family photo album, over 100, really 150 years old, and as I was thinking of this old photo album, I think the mid-1800s was the, not all the photos are dated, but the one that I saw, the earliest one I saw dated, was in the 1850s. And it's falling apart, and it's an old book. But it reminded me of a new book that I recently read. I listened to the audio of Kristin Harmel and the Book of Lost Names. This became very noteworthy in the fact that it became an international New York Times bestseller in 1 week when it was published in July of 2020. Just a few months ago. And I love listening to it by audio. And it was inspired by a true World War II story. And it opens, it's a fictional book. This is the audio version, but book on CD, but it's a fiction book. And it opens set in a library in 2005 in Florida. And it opens with a semi-retired librarian who is shelving some books when her eye catches a magazine picture and she freezes. Literally, people, co-workers around her thought something was terribly wrong with her. What happened is she saw a picture in a magazine and it made her freeze because it's a picture of a book she hadn't seen in 65 years. Already library co-workers, when they saw her response, they're thinking, this is it. She's got to go. They've been begging her to retire. After all, she is 86, but she was a very young 86, and she had no room for the word retirement in her vocabulary. But when she saw the picture in this magazine that day as she was shelving books, it put her in shock. It was a picture of the Book of Lost Names. And the librarian's name was Eva Trobe Abrams. And that picture immediately brought back painful World War II memories. She just had all kinds of memories come flooding back to her. And the whole article was about how this old book, this 18th century religious text, which they were wondering whether it was from France or not, but it was such a different book. It seemed like there was some kind of code in it, but no one had been able to decipher it. No one had been able to determine where the book came from. And this famous library in Berlin was trying to reunite books with their rightful owners that the Nazis had stolen by looting libraries all throughout Europe. And especially the closer the end of the war came, the more intense the Nazis were in looting libraries. And so as soon as Eva saw this picture, she knew where the book came from. She knew what the code was. It was her book. Well, her book and Remy's. Remy was her long-gone love who was in the French resistance. Eva learned to forge documents and help save hundreds of Jewish children. Through this book, she would record their names because one of her jobs was to write fake documents, forged documents, so that these young Jewish children could be smuggled into Switzerland. So she didn't want the children, who were some of them very, very young, they would never even know their rightful names or where they came from. And so she and Remy devised this code that they put inside of a very antique religious text so that after the war they could reconnect the children, tell them what their rightful names were, what town they came from, and that was the whole plan until things just went awry towards the end of the work, and the forgery ring was found by the Nazis, and just terrible things happened. But Eva has never forgotten her pain. She never told her husband or her adult son of her past when she came here to the U.S. and began a U.S. life. She doesn't know now whether she has the strength to go back and face all those painful places, painful memories, painful people. Could she do it? She's tried so hard all these years to escape her past. Can she do it now? But she knew it was her book. It was her story. Could she go back? The Book of Last Names by Kristin Harmel was based on an inspiring true story. The author, Kristin Harmel, is pretty interesting as well. She's been professionally writing since she was 16 years old. She's a former reporter for People magazine. She's appeared in morning TV shows like The Daily Buzz, GMA, and many other morning shows. She was born outside of Boston and got her journalism degree from the University of Florida. She's lived in Paris, LA, and now in Orlando with her husband and young son. In an interview I watched of this author, someone asked her how she came up with the idea for this book. And she has written 9 World War II novels. Half of those have been set in France. Like most of this book is in France. And she said that it just gave her a lot of ideas. And including in the 9 World War II novels she's written, in 2019, she also wrote the best-selling Winemaker's Wife. And in 2 of her previous books, forgery and looted books were just briefly mentioned, but she was always fascinated by those 2 subjects. And so she noticed how regular people that had an artistic or scientific backgrounds became very good at forgeries, and that it was used to help save people's lives in World War II. And that just really interested her, but she wasn't sure if that was enough of a storyline to write a book about. Then in 2019, I think it was in January of that year, the New York Times had an article about returning looted books to their rightful owner. And then she said it was just like a light bulb went off. Cha-ching! She now had enough information and do research on 2 topics: forgery and those that were excellent forgers during World War II in forging documents, as well as returning looted books to their rightful owners. And she said she just couldn't wait to write it down. Carroll County Public Library has this book in regular print, in large print, in book and CD like I'm holding in my hand, as well as digital copies are available. You can place a hold online, or you can call any branch and have some librarian help you place a hold and get it ready all for you. And we'll be glad to help you with that. Once again, thank you for watching What to Read Wednesdays.